Hello, welcome to the Bible for Life ministry. I'm Nick Crawley, and this is the first of 3 short video clips introducing the Old Testament book of 1 Samuel. First, we need to see how 1 Samuel fits into the collection of history books in the Old Testament. There are 12 of these, and the first 3, that is Joshua, Judges and Ruth, describe the time when God's people entered the Promised Land and became established in it. It covers a period of about 300 years, during which God's people were overseen or led by judges, people like Gideon and Samson and a number of others. The middle section, that is 6 books, really describe the monarchy. That is the establishment of the monarchy, its the rise of it, and then lasting a few hundred years, finally to its demise when the Babylonians overran Jerusalem and took the people, or certainly the leaders, to exile in Babylon. And then the last 3 books, that is Esther, Nehemiah and Ezra, describe both the time in captivity in Babylon and then the return to Judah and the establishment of the Second Temple, and that takes us up to about 400 BC. 1 Samuel is the first book of the middle section, and it's about the establishing of the monarchy for God's people. 1 Samuel is 31 chapters long, which means that it's longer than any book in the New Testament. It is history, as we've seen, but it's history told in a particular way. It's told through stories. And this is the fascination of the book. It starts with a lovely story about Hannah, a godly woman in very nasty distress, and then tells the story of Eli, and then you've got some lovely stories later on, stories which are well known, David fighting Goliath, and then David being anointed by Samuel, and then there's a number of other stories which you may know, a lovely story about Jonathan fighting the Philistines just on his own with his armor bearer, and then the final story where Saul goes to see the witch of Endor and is then killed in battle with the Philistines the next day. In terms of the literary genre, the 1 Samuel is about is hero stories. There are 3 major heroes, that is Samuel and Saul and David, and then 3 minor ones, Hannah, Eli, those 2 I just mentioned, and Jonathan. And the stories are told really through focusing on these individuals. The story of Saul is a tragedy. It is, and deliberately so. I mean, that's the way it's told. And you get the sense as you read these stories that they've been told and retold over many, many years. They've polished. You can imagine the communities sitting around and listening to these stories told by professional storytellers again and again. They grip, they're intriguing, they're riveting, and they have touches about them which reflect the sense of, you're dealing with something which is mature, which is being handed down through the generations. All these stories take place against the background of a united threat, and that is from the Philistines. They were people who lived in the Mediterranean, quite possibly from Greece, and they've settled on the coastlands, and they cause considerable nuisance to the to the Jewish people, the Israelite people, as they seek to establish themselves in the Promised Land. And it's against this united opponent of the Philistines that all these stories take place, and the conflict between David and Saul's houses, and the influence of Samuel in this, and all these developments take place against this background of the united threat. These stories are, of course, human stories. They're stories about human beings, but they reflect at a much deeper level God's dealings with human beings. And this is the power of these stories, and this is the delight. So many people would say that David is their favorite character in the Bible, and indeed the Psalms are written in this context of so much of the aggression and the fight for survival, and the belief that even though things are going very, very badly, yet God will intervene, and indeed he does. And this is the background for this really intriguing book, which, as I think I've said already, has really no parallel in Scripture. There's nothing really quite like 1 Samuel anywhere else in the way these stories are told, and the sort of perspective and background and interest that it arouses. So the thing to do is to start reading. Just start reading, and reading, instead of reading chapter by chapter, read section by section. Start by reading all about Hannah. Read about Eli. And then read about Saul's appointment, and you get the whole swathe of the story, and live in it, think about it, and see how the principles that applied then apply to us today.